So in this lesson, we're going to go ahead and create our enemies. And so we're going to need a new scene just for our enemies. And I want you to, again, if you didn't watch the previous video, it's the one about the, where I talk about the difference between nodes and scenes and all that. I'm going to be reiterating it here and throughout the lesson, but you should definitely go watch it. But overall, what a scene is you can think of it as a blueprint if you've experienced with Unreal or prefab in Unity. So what we're doing is essentially setting up um, a scene is a collection of nodes, or you can, which is all these different components here. And we could use that to essentially instance our enemy across the game, right? Because we want a bunch of burglars. So what we'll do is we'll set up our burglar and then we'll modify it, the artwork in Photopea. And again, if you are comfortable with Photoshop or any of the other 2D editing softwares, feel free to do that. But I find Photopea free and easier to use. Maybe not easier to use, but easily accessible. You just open up a web browser, it's super fast. So anyway, that's my sale for Photopea. All right, so let's go ahead and create a new scene. And for the root node here, you can click on other nodes, or you can filter nodes and just type in rigid body. Oh, actually, well, we can't filter because it's not in the scene, but let's go ahead and hit other node, and then let's type rigid body, 2D. And I'm going to name this enemy, just in case, because we can make instances of other enemies. And then I'm going to save this scene as, and make sure it's in my scenes folder as enemy, and then hit save. Let's right click on enemy, add a child node, and it's going to be a sprite 2D. And I'm going to grab my burglar and just drag and drop that texture in here. Now you can see we have our burglar. And actually, I thought about doing a collision shape, adding the collision shape now, but what I'm thinking is maybe we just sort of modify this character so that it matches the size essentially of our police officer. You can see how tiny it is here. So what I'm going to do is I just dragged him in there for reference. This guy should be roughly the same size. So I'm going to right click on my burglar and I'm going to go to open folder in terminal. Not in terminal, sorry. Open folder, show in file manager. Sorry, I'm jumping between essentially my Mac, which does reveal and finder and all this other stuff, so I get a little mixed up there. So here's my burglar, and I'm going to go ahead and open up Photopea and drag this character in and just do the same modification process as before. All right, here we are in Photopea. I'm going to hit C, and that's for crop, and just move that in to crop that. And then what you can do is just press enter. Let's make a new layer below this one. Even though this looks like it's a translucent background, like how this looks in Photopea or Photoshop, it's actually just an image, and it mistakens that for make it look translucent. If I press W here, it'll select my wand tool, and you can see there's a tolerance setting here. So if I click here on this image here, you could see that it's seeing that there's a little bit of a shadow there. So if I go back to my wand tool and I increase the tolerance to, let's say, 70, and then I click again, you could see it starts to eat away at that a little bit more. Maybe let's try 90. Maybe that's too much, but let's see. It looks pretty good. So what I might do is, well, let's go a little higher, actually. Let's see what that, if we go all the way up to 100%, or 100 there. Not bad. And I could actually just erase these three little dots. So I'm going to press delete, and then Control D to deselect, and then just hit E to grab my eraser. Now you could hit the brackets to increase or decrease the size of your brush, or you can click here, and this will increase it. I'm just going a little bit smaller so I can just get those. Now, if I remove this layer down here, and I hit Control S, it should save it right onto that burglar PNG in Godot. So let's take a look at how that looks by jumping back in. All right, here we are back in Godot. You can see that my burglar is still quite large compared to my police officer. So let's go back to our browser in Photopea and then scale this down. All right, so let's go ahead and go to image and then size here. And let's go to inches, and we'll see that's pretty big. So if I go to 1, and it should just sort of auto update the size, and I hit OK, it makes it much smaller. I'm going to hit Control S to save that. Let's jump back into Godot and see the comparative size. I should have remembered or kept the size of that police officer. I guess I could open that image too. But let's take a look. I think that looks pretty good. He's a little bit smaller, and that might be okay too. So let's go ahead and essentially reset the position. And I'm going to press delete on my police officer here. Yes, I want to delete that node. So I have my essentially my burglar here. And then I want to select my highest mode, the highest level of my enemy, hit add node, go to collision shape 2D, and then hit create. And then on that, let's see how big that is. Oh, we still have to select our shape. I'm just going to do the same thing, a capsule. Just play with the size of this capsule a little bit. Something like that. Making sure to hit Control S to save this. Now what I'd like to do is create an instance, which is, and we'll get into this stuff a little bit later, and this is for my burglar. Actually, you know what, we'll spend a little bit of time in this video just talking about how to instance, but for now, go into your main scene, which is level 01, and what I want to do is I'm going to instance in my burglar. So this is this button here, this is the instant child in scene, or you can hit Control-Shift-A, and when you click on it, it's asking you, well, what do you want to instance? Well, I want to instance my enemy. You can see there's my enemy. And now we're sort of seeing as well, like, the scale, right? So like that's why I was saying maybe we scale this up a great deal, and just sort of so that it matches the size. And again, maybe we'll even do a camera that follows the player instead of just a static thing, and we could even do that in another game. But now that's starting to look a little bit more natural, and it's okay if it's not perfect. But now if I press play, you can see that there's my burglar instance in the scene, and you can see there's a gravity on my burglar character, so he falls. And if I press the just the scene itself, you'll see that it still recognizes that character. All right, so let's take a look at what instancing is. If I select my enemy here and I hit Control D, and I'm just going to select my move tool here, or press W, and I could just sort of move this around, and now I have 3 of these burglars, right? Now let's say I want to make this burglar bigger than this burglar. Well, I can go inside of essentially my transform here, and there's a scale option, and I can say, well, this burglar is size 2 times as big. He's like the boss, maybe 1.5. But notice that these other ones did not change in size. Well, if I go to inside this enemy here, right? Let's if I go inside the enemy, right? The enemy, sorry, over here, our character itself, and I say, you know what? I want all of them to be twice as big. Like I said, you should definitely do this in Photopea, but I want to make all of them 3 times the size, right? Oh wait, that's actually the shape. So let's go to the transform here and do 3 times here. Now if I save this and I jump back into my level 01, you could see that these 2 are 3 times the size, right? So I open my transform here, you could see these 2 are both 3 times the size. But this one stayed, let's go back to selecting here, hit Q. This one stayed 1.5 times the size. And the reason for that is whatever you do inside of the main scene to your instance takes priority. But if you didn't alter them, like if I press reset, you can see now this one is 3 times the size. This particular burger enemy 3. So you can share properties. That's what you're doing with instancing, right? Like with creating a prefab, you can change certain parameters in the actual the main scene itself. And so if I reset this now and I save this, and it'll go back in. And what's nice about this is a great way of altering all of the characters at once because they're instances, and it's also more memory performant. Also, the you can change, for example, the color of this enemy inside of the scene, and that'll give you some variety, and then that won't alter the other ones. I know that's a little bit confusing, but as we continue to build out games, you'll get a little bit more comfortable with instancing because that's really how you sort of you sort of create all of your enemies. You're creating instances, or like we've done object pooling in other games, in other classes in Unreal and Unity, where you're like spawning in a bunch of objects and turning them on and off. Well, you're kind of going to do the same thing in here. You're just going to instance them, and that to save memory and turn them on and off, and then you can alter each one in the scene, and that'll give it variety. All right, so I don't want these enemies essentially falling, so let's just go ahead and do one last thing, which is inside of our enemy scene. Let's just make sure that we select the main enemy, which is the rigid body, and just turn gravity off to 0. And what we'll be doing is just kind of bumping these enemies into the police car. So let me make sure I save everything, and then we'll end this specific tutorial or this lesson here. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing what you all come up with your art and your game.